friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very different card for you guys. It's all dies, no stamps. So I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn Magic Iris Birdhouse add-on and the Shadow Box card Park add-on. So the first thing that I did was go through my bag of cardstock scraps. This is how I store all of my scraps. I just keep them in a Ziploc baggie and I can flip through whenever I need to. And I only keep scraps that are at least big enough to die cut a sentiment out of. Otherwise I just toss them. But so I pulled out a bunch of different colors of cardstock that I thought I might want to use on today's card. I'm not going to end up using all of the ones that I pulled out here, but I kind of just needed to have an idea of what direction I wanted to go in. So I pulled out some colors that I thought looked nice together. So these are the cardstock samples that I picked out, and then I'm going to die cut these using all of the little pieces that I want to use from these die sets. So the actual birdhouse I die cut out of some MFT snow cone cardstock, and then I die cut the grassy border for that shadow box die using some Lawn Fawn craft cardstock and some ground coffee cardstock. I'm going to glue those together to create a little nest in my birdhouse. And then I'm just holding that up to the back of the birdhouse and trimming off the excess. And then I'll glue that down to the back. So that's just going to show through from the front a little bit so I have a place to put my little birds. Then I added some foam tape to the back all around that opening so that I could add a backer piece onto the birdhouse and have a bit of dimension there. And I first used a piece of moonstone cardstock for that from Lawn Fawn, but I decided that I didn't like that because that's what I'm going to be using for my sky, and I didn't want it to look the same as the sky. So I just peeled that back off, and then I'm going to grab a piece of narwhal cardstock. And I'm just going to kind of use that as a template. So I just trimmed that down enough that none of the corners would be showing from the front. And then I'm going to add that right over top of the foam tape. And then I wanted to do the roof, and I wanted to do a little bit of a drop shadow on that. So I took some more of that narwhal cardstock, and then I also took some white wood grain cardstock, and I'm going to just layer those pieces. So I have the gable for the top, and then I also have that scallop piece for the bottom. So I'm just lining that up carefully. So a little bit of that narwhal cardstock shows through on the bottom, and then I'm going to do the same for the straight piece, and then I can adhere that to the top and the bottom of that birdhouse just by running a line of glue there and then pressing that down over top. So this type of card is definitely way out of my comfort zone. I have never done a card not using stamps before, but it is our current Lawn Fanatics challenge to use only dies. So I'm going to do my best here and we'll see how this turns out. But yeah, just gluing those pieces down, making sure they're adhered well. And then I'm also going to do the little like the little stand that sticks out for the birds to sit on right below that opening, and I did the drop shadow for that as well just to keep it consistent. And then I'm going to glue that down between that bottom scallop and that window, and I just want to make sure it was on there straight, so I'm using a little craft pick to make sure that I have that right in the center, and then I'll press that down into place. Then I'm going to work on the birds, and the large bird is from the Magic Iris Birdhouse add-on. The smaller one is from the Shadow Box card Park add-on. And I'm actually going to flip one over and use it backwards so that I can have a bird that is facing the other direction as well. So I just popped out the little eye that was from those birds, and then I'm using the same circle that I used for the stand to just add a little bit of black behind their eyes. And once again, I'm using my craft pick just to keep my fingers out of that glue, and I can also use it to remove the glue from the center if I need to. So I just have one left. I'm going to do the mama bird last, just adding that little dot behind the eye so that it looks a little bit more vibrant and just shows up better on those little birds, which the birds were die cut with the moonstone cardstock as well. And then I have the wings, which I die cut from Blue Jay cardstock. So I'm going to add the largest one to the mama bird, and then the smaller ones are from the Shadow Box Park add-on, because that one goes to the smaller birds. So just adding that, and then also adding it to the other one. And I did decide to just kind of smooth that out with my Teflon bone folder, both the wing and the bird, because it is flipped over in the reverse. There are a little bit of like a ridge around the edge of that die cut. So I just kind of smooth that out a bit more with that bone folder. And then I can take those birds and add them into the scene. Well, the two baby birds I'm going to add into the scene for now. I'm going to leave the mama off and add her later on because I want her to layer over some things. So one baby bird I'm going to tuck in the nest, and the other one I'm going to have standing on that little wooden dowel that's sticking out. And now I can begin to decorate with some of these little vines, and I die cut those using cilantro cardstock for the lighter green and noble fir for the darker green. So I'm just going to start building up some layers and decorating it with these little vines. And I will fill in any little gaps that might be missing or, you know, where the vines aren't connected with some of the flowers. So I'm just kind of tucking the stems of the next vine under a leaf of the previous vine so it looks a little bit more seamless and you don't see those cut ends. So I did that for the top, and just made sure that those are glued down securely as well so that nothing gets bent up when you slip it into an envelope to mail this to a recipient. I'm also going to add some vines to the bottom edge. So I'm doing the cilantro on the outside edge just to reverse it from the top where I use the noble fir on the outside. So I'll have one on the left, one on the right, and then I'll put the noble fir one in between the two to kind of bridge that gap. And like I said, any stems that aren't covered up now will eventually get covered up when I add the flowers. So I have one more of these green vines, and I wanted to use that at the very top, but it was a little bit too long, so I trimmed that down a bit, and it still ended up being a little bit too long. So I'm going to take off one more leaf and then add that back to fill in that gap at the top. And I also wanted to add a little heart to decorate the top of the birdhouse. So I'm going to do that, adding that. That's die cut with some sticky note cardstock, and I'm just going to tuck that under that green vine, that darker green vine. And now I can start adding in some flowers. So the purple ones are using MFT grapesicle cardstock. And I'm going to add the outer part of the purple, and then I also die cut it out of yellow so that I could pop out the inside and put that in the middle so that it has a two-toned look. So I'm going to continue working my way around adding these, just popping the centers out with the craft pick so that I can glue them down. Probably I could have left the centers in and then just layered the yellow center right over top, and that would have given it even more dimension, but I didn't think of that until I'd already gotten started, and then it was too late. I just wanted to be consistent across the board, so just popping those little yellow centers into the purple flowers. So let me know, have you guys ever created a card using only die cuts? When I first saw that this challenge was coming up, I was just like, I had no idea what on earth I could make for that, because it's just not something I ever really thought about doing. I am a colorist and I love coloring, so not using stamps or my Copic markers just really threw me for a loop, but I decided to try to embrace it and just do the best that I could. And in the end, I am happy with how the card turned out. So I don't know. I definitely will be making another card in the future using only dies because I am required to do one more for this challenge for my feature for this month on the Lawn Fanatics blog. So I definitely will be doing at least one more of these. After that, we'll see. We'll see how that one turns out. But yeah, I'd love to know if you guys have ever attempted anything like this before. So I'm also adding in the smaller purple flowers. All of those little flowers came with the Magic Iris Birdhouse add-on. So I'm just continuing to kind of fill that in and see where I want those little flowers to go. And I had also die cut some pink flowers using Lawn Fawn guava cardstock, but in the end I decided not to use them. I was really liking this softer color palette that was going on here, and I felt like the pink flowers might have taken it to a much brighter place, which for once I didn't want to go. Normally I love bright cards, but for this one I just really liked those cooler vibes with just the little bit of the yellow for warmth, and so I decided to stick with that. I am also adding in one of those extra leaves up at the top just to kind of fill that spot in at the very top there. And then I was trying to decide if I wanted to stop there or if I wanted to also add the little yellow flowers. And in the end I decided to go ahead and add them just so there would be a little bit more going on there, and it would also tie into the yellow centers of the larger purple flowers. So I'm just kind of bending those a little bit with my fingernail to give them a little bit of a curve to them so they have a little more dimension on the card, and then just filling in any empty holes with those tiny yellow flowers. So once I have all of those on, I'm ready to start adhering this to the card base, and I'm going to be using some Moonstone cardstock for that. And I wanted this to look like a sky, so I'm using the Spring Showers clouds, and I'm going to adhere those behind the birdhouse to kind of fill in that background a bit more. So I just have that birdhouse set on the card kind of where I want it to go so that I can fill in the background with these clouds and kind of get them spaced how I want them on either side of it. So I'm just working my way down to the left and then to the right and trying to figure out where everything should go. And I did use that wood grain cardstock again for the clouds just to add a bit more texture into this scene. So I'll add one more large cloud over on the left side so it kind of zigzags down across the card. And then I can glue the birdhouse on there. So I added some liquid glue to the back of the gray piece, and then I'm adding some foam tape around that just to help support that a little bit more. So like I said, when this goes through the mail, there won't be any issues. I also trimmed down some thin pieces of foam tape to support that roof a bit more as well so that it didn't get bent up. So then I can just peel off those little release papers and then line that back on the card. I want that to be up toward the top so that I have room at the bottom for my sentiment. And I'm just making sure that there's room at the top there though for the mama bird because I want to add her. And I'm putting some foam tape on the back of her just over the parts where she's going to be not overlapping the birdhouse so that she will be supported as well. I'm even putting some on her tail so that doesn't get bent up in the mail either. I'm just tucking her up at the top of the birdhouse between those vines and flowers, but I decided that she was blending in too much with the background since she's die cut out of the same cardstock. So I cut out one more small cloud and I'm going to tuck that in behind her head. Then I took the Scripty Hello die and cut that out of some sticky note cardstock 3 times, and I'm going to glue these together to make it a little bit thicker so that it will stand up a little bit more on the card. So I'm just laying those right over top and then making sure that they are lined up perfectly before I press them down. And then I will repeat that process one more time. And I love using this Barely Art Precision Craft Glue for this because it has that super fine nozzle that allows me to get into those very delicate die cuts and just get that glue right where it needs to go. So once that's all together, I can add some liquid glue to the back of that one more time, just making sure that that is where I want it to go and that it's going to look right. So I'm going to add that liquid glue, and I was just about to adhere it down, but then I realized that I really needed a stand for the birdhouse because otherwise it was going to look like it was just floating in the sky. So before I adhere the sentiment, I just die cut the stand out of some craft cardstock, and I'm going to tuck that under the birdhouse and just make sure that's on there nice and straight, and then I can take that hello die cut and layer that right over top. And I am glad I added that stand because I do think it looks a lot better with that on there. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to finish off the inside of this card because that's something I really love to do, but I always stamp on the inside. But I decided to take the outside parts of these 3 yellow flowers that I just used the centers of on the outside of the card and just glue those down in the bottom left corner. And then I'm going to take the centers from the purple flowers from the outside of the card and just pop those in the middle there, right over top of that liquid glue. So that just adds a little something to the inside of the card and then gives me more room to write a sentiment later on when I, make this card out for somebody. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know it was super different, but if you did like it, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment down below. I love chatting with you guys. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you never miss a future video. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. All of the products that I used today will be listed and linked in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.